Hello and welcome to another Stamp with Amy K YouTube Live. And today I am going to show you how I put together a card with the Scenic Adventure stamp set bundle from Stampin' Up. This is one of the newer bundles, well, a brand new bundle, I should say, that will be available for customers to order starting on the 6th of May. So it's one of the new online exclusives. So you're not going to see it in any catalog. Sorry, I'm going to move my camera around just a hair. So hopefully get it on straightened out and kind of a little more centered than I was. But all right, so this is one of the new bundles that will be available to order starting on the 6th of May. And it's one of the online exclusives. So it's not tied to any catalog. It's just going to be out in the online store. You'll find it under the online exclusive section in the store, which you can find if you just go to stampinup.com and then click on the menu button on the upper left and then go to the little round tab that says online exclusives. And you'll see all the awesome stuff that's available to order now out there. But again, this is one of the items that will be coming on the 6th of May. So it's a pretty bundle. And I know if you're like me, I always am struggling to make masculine cards. So this one is a good one. The sentiments are just sort of, some congratulations type things, that sort of thing. But you could easily change it to a birthday card or something like that if that's what you need. So lots of good stuff that you can do with this one. And again, it's a bundle, so it's a stamp set and dies. And yeah, it's a good one. Really easy to use too. That's the other thing I loved about it is the die cutting. They layer really nicely together. The biggest thing you need to do is just make sure that it's wide enough before you start your die cutting, whatever paper you're going to be cutting. So, but I'll give you a couple tips as we go along here and make the card today. So I see Karen and Sally and Mary Ruth, Marilyn, Carol, Judy, Darby, Roxanne, and Danette are all here. So thanks everybody for joining, and Sherry as well. So again, this is what we're making. It's pretty quick and easy, and I use some of the other other online exclusives for the background paper on here. And yeah, we'll talk more about that too. All right, so this is the stamp set. Again, it's got some really cool images in it. I love the little pine trees, and then there's a little set of flowers here. This, I think you could probably use it as dirt. I used it as the water on my card, and then there's a big cloud image as well. And then again, just kind of some nice mix and match sentiments. And there's obviously and you can either switch it to Journey or Adventure. And I use Journey. I don't know if you want to use Adventure, all good. Can't wait to see you again. You're amazing. Just breathe and take it slow, and then choose to another. And you can use either Journey or Adventure. It's kind of one of those mix and match sentiment dies or sentiment sets as well. So I'm glad you're able to make it as well, Jackie. So thanks for being here, and Stephanie too. All right, so this is the die set, and you will see that actually none of these stamped images coordinate with the dies. There are some that look similar, but they're not actually designed to stamp and die cut. So it's a set of stamps and then coordinating dies, and the dies can be used all by themselves. So if you don't love the stamp set, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't love the stamp set, you can still get the dies and use those all individually, and they'll work perfectly fine without the stamp set, which is one of the nice little bonuses of this. So this is a little evergreen tree line, and of course this one's upside down. This is like a little shrub line, which I used here on my card. I used both of those. And then turn it around again. This is the mountain die that I used here. And then there's another little mountain die, and that one I used back here as well. So you'll see that in a second. A couple that I didn't use on here is there are just some little individual evergreen tree, or there's one little evergreen tree and then a double tree set. This, again, if you can use it, and it will emboss essentially and look like water. So that'll be kind of cool too. And then there are some little flowers. And then this one cuts out like a stars and a moon. So if you wanted to do like a backgroundy look, make it be a night scene, you could use that one. And then this one's really cool. It's a little set of crossed logs, and then you can use it with that die to create a little campfire. So it is a cute little die set, definitely a good one. Again, lots of good dies in it. And then the coordinating stamp set called Scenic Adventure, and these will both be available to order as a bundle or individually starting on the 6th of May in the online exclusives. So hey, Kathy and Nicole, thanks for hopping in. All right, a couple other things that I used on here is I did use another one, actually two more of the online exclusive die sets. This is the textured notes dies, and I used the largest rectangle die to cut out the edges of my card. Is it really necessary to do that die cutting? No, but I thought it gave it a nice little finished edge on it without having to do a lot of layering because it's kind of a thick card by the time you get all the cardstock layers on it. So that was my thought on it. And then I also used the second to the smallest, which is this little die from the Everyday Arches dies. This is a die set that's available out in the online exclusives now, as well as the textured notes dies. This die set in the United States is actually on back order. It's currently showing as returning around May 19th. Many things have been coming in a little earlier, so I'm hopeful that it'll be back sooner. But if nothing else, hopefully it should be back by about the middle of May. So again, if you don't have this set, it's a great one. You'll want to get it. And if you don't have it, I'll just ask, why don't you have it? It's an awesome one. So anyway, all right. So that is it for the items that I used on it. And again, just a reminder on the online exclusives, there are some new ones. These are the newer, some of the new online exclusives that will be coming the 6th of May. These are some of very few of the online exclusives that are currently available. So anytime you're out in the online store, make sure that you're checking those out so that you can see what's new out there and then picking up anything that you're wanting. Because again, these items are not tied to any catalog. They kind of come and go. So you may see things disappearing out of the online store and then you'll be sad you'll miss them. So just order them if you see them and it's something that you want. All right. Get that all out of the way and we'll get going on the card. So I started with a Misty Moonlight card base, and then I've got a piece of Misty Moonlight Designer Series paper, and this is actually from the Everyday Skies Designer Series paper pack, which is also an online exclusive, and it's a pack of 6x6 Designer Series paper that has got all sorts of good background images in it, and then it's got all sorts of different sky images. So this one is a good one to get, especially if you're going to get this die set, because you'll have a lot of fun mixing and matching things together. It also works. There's the Everyday Arches stamp set that's currently out there in the online exclusives. And it's all in a suite together. So if you wanted to get everything, you can get it all together as well. So, all right, Misty Moonlight card base. My original card base was a 4 1/4 by 11-inch card base, scored at 5.5. I'm just showing you that you can also use, if you prefer the book fold card bases. This card will also work with the standard book fold card. So the card base that I've got here today is, what do we have? 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4 down the middle. Apparently measurements are going to be difficult today. So, and then I just adhered a piece of Designer Series paper. Again, this is from Everyday Skies, and it measures about 4 1/4 by 5.5. So it should cover the entire card front if I've cut everything correctly. All right, let's set that aside, and then I will grab a couple of other pieces of paper. So this is another one of the Everyday Skies patterns from that pack of paper. Flip side has got some little birds. It looks like kind of little pink and purple birds on it. I'm going to grab the largest die from the textured notes dies, and I cut down this paper just a little bit to make it easier to run it through in my die cutting machine, because it only needs to be about, I don't know, 4-ish inches wide in order to be able to cut it with this largest die. And I found with the rectangular dies, if you take the die and just turn it ever so slightly when you run it through your die cutting machine. If you run it through straight, it hits this solid edge and there's like a big bump and it's kind of hard to get it to roll through the machine nicely. If you can cut down your paper and turn it at just ever so slight of an angle, it rolls through much easier. So that is my tip with the rectangular dies. It's not always a possibility, but when you can, it works pretty well. So let me go run this through the die cutting machine. That's what we get when we do the die cutting. I'll get that out of the way. Then the next couple of layers, I'll explain what I was doing when I was doing it, or as I do it. Hopefully it'll make sense as to why I did what I did. So I've got a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and this is about, I don't know, probably 4 1/4 by about 1.25 inches. And I've got to grab the little water looking image from the Scenic Adventure stamp set and Misty Moonlight ink. And I'm just going to stamp that a couple times, probably, I think about 4 times is what it took for me to get most of the front of this covered. May have to do it, I think 4 times should do it. Maybe, I don't know. We'll plan to do it 4 times and we'll see how it looks. I may need to do it one more time because I can't remember how big I started with originally. All right, right, just stamping it again across the paper here. I'm going to do this one in the middle. And basically you're just wanting to get the whole thing stamped. So that's all there is to that. It doesn't really matter exactly how you get it stamped on there. So, all right, let's close this up. And then I'm going to grab my Old Olive cardstock. Again, I don't know, it's about 1.5 inches tall, and again, about 4 1/4 wide. The main thing is you want it to be wide enough that you're not worried about the die cutting that we're going to do on the front. So I'd say a minimum of 4 inches. I'd probably go with 4 1/4 wide, just because it makes it easier when you're die cutting to not have to be so stressed out about having everything exactly straight on it. So I would suggest start with 4 1/4 wide on both of these pieces. Then I'm going to grab what looks like, oh, I almost lost my little log die. What looks like shrubs to me, and I don't know if that's exactly what they're supposed to be, but that's what it looks like to me. And I'm just going to take this and we're going to run it through the die cutting machine. Again, this is about 1.5 inches tall, and I'm putting it up close to the top, and it doesn't need to be perfectly straight or anything, because you can make adjustments to it depending on how you adhere it to the back of this piece, and I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm going to go run this through the die cutting machine. And I got some new cutting plates, and I'm just amazed at how, they work so much. They're so smooth now, and everything is cutting so nicely, unlike the ones that I usually use where it looks like a dog has chewed on them. All right, so I'm going to go back to my stamped piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and we're just going to add a little Stampin' Seal to the back of it. And then I'm just going to sort of line up where I want the shrub, how much of the shrubs I want to be peeking out from behind the water. So again, you don't have to line it up perfectly straight on the side, because we're going to be trimming it off with the dies. So the main thing is just get it kind of centered and as straight as you want it to be on there. Then I'm going to grab this die again that I used to cut the piece of Designer Series paper. And I'm just going to take this and again, just roughly center it where I want it to be. And then I'm going to run it through the die cutting machine like this. I don't have it all the way down. It's almost down to the bottom of the blue cardstock, the Misty Moonlight cardstock. So hopefully you can see that. And again, roughly centered how I want it to look. So I'm going to go run this through the die cutting machine. And you'll see on my card front, I actually have got a couple of other layers on here where I've cut the trees and the mountains. And I've done it before where I've layered like 4 layers of cardstock deep on these and tried to cut it with a rectangular die. You can do it, but it doesn't cut very nicely. So that's why I'm just doing it in like 2 layers at a time, because I find that works best for me when I'm die cutting. I can get nice edges. Sometimes if you try to get it too thick, you're rolling it back and forth and back and forth, and the edges get a little mangled up. And so I tend to keep it to 2 layers if I can do that, if it's at all possible. So let me run this through the die cutting machine. And then this is what we're left with. All right, so we've got a nice little die cut edge on both pieces. Then I'm going to grab, hey Karen, thanks for hopping in. I'm going to put this one back on the die sheet. And then I'm going to grab my little tree line edge here. So again, this is from the Scenic Adventure dies. And I'm just going to do the same thing. This piece measures about 2 inches tall by about 4 1/4 wide. So again, I'm just going to do the same thing where I'm just going to roughly line it up to what I think is going to be straight or kind of straight. This one's a little hard to tell because the tree line sort of does that. So when you put it down on here, you're going to be like, that's not straight at all. And then you realize once you die cut it that you probably have it too tilted like that. So anyway, just run it through, give yourself a little extra room on it, and don't panic about it. So, all right, I'm going to run this through the die cutting machine. All right, so we get our nice little die cut trees here. And then the last 2 pieces, actually I die cut one of them already. This is the little mountain die cut. So it cuts and embosses just the top of it here. So I just did a little piece that's about 2 inches wide, and it was about probably 1 3/4 inches to start with. And I just ran it through the die cutting machine with this die. So I cut this one ahead of time. And then the mountain one, you can see this is the flip side of the piece that I used to cut my piece for the other card, the actual card that I made. And I'm just going to grab the little mountain die, and I don't know, you probably want this one to be about 2¼ to 2½ inches tall, kind of depending on how much mountain you want to show in the background. And then the biggest thing is just make sure that you've got your edges lined up over here, about 4¼ wide, again, so you're giving yourself a little bit of room to make sure you're not getting too close to the edges and having to have everything lined up perfectly. Just going to run this through the die cutting machine just like this. And again, just make sure that you get your edges straight, otherwise you're going to have to do a little trimming on the edge. That's the only thing. So make sure you get your edges, the little die edges, not straight, but lined up past the edge of your cardstock. Otherwise, you're going to have to trim things away, which isn't a problem either, but just know that as you're doing it, it'll only cut to that wide. All right. So then that is our little die cut mountain. Let me put this back on my die sheet before I lose track of everything. The next thing that I did was I took the smaller mountain and I grabbed one of the small blending brushes and my gray granite ink. And if I didn't say so, this is gray granite cardstock. This is garden green. I don't know whether I said the colors or not. Sometimes I get busy yakking and I forget what I've said and haven't said. So you're going to just grab a little gray granite ink, and we're just going to ink the little mountain image just to give it a little bit of contrast from the mountains in front of it. If you don't like the look of this, you don't have to do it. If you wanted to put the ink on the front die cut, you could certainly do that as well. I don't know, I thought it looked more like it was in the shadow in the background, but I don't know if that's technically correct. I probably should have put it on the front mountains, but you know, oh well. You can take your pick on which one you like better. So, all right, let's get this put away. Then I'm going to put a little Stampin' Seal down here on the bottom of this die cut. Actually, I'm going to wait and do that. Never mind. Let's put these together first. So I'm going to do put my little mountains together with the trees, and I'm just going to add a little Stampin' Seal down here to the bottom of the mountain die cut. And if you prefer liquid glue, you could certainly use liquid glue. I just prefer Stampin' Seal. The only thing to be careful of is, I don't know if you saw it, when I put this down initially, you can kind of see the Stampin' Seal through here. So if you want your trees to be adhered down that far, just roll your Stampin' Seal down with your finger like that, and make sure it's not showing through the trees. Well, I don't like it to be showing through the trees. So that is what I do to kind of fix it. And if you've used liquid glue, you might have a stickier mess than what I just did, but you can still wipe it off if you want to. All right, so just adhering those two pieces together. And then I'm going to go back to this same die and just going to roughly place this on here so that I know about where I want it to land. And then again, I just know that I want to use kind of the middle of the die, if that makes sense, to die cut it, in the hopes that I can get the edges to sort of line up together. That's not such a vital and important part. It's just, that was just how I did it, just so that I kind of have it roughly in the same area, and that hopefully I could connect the dots with the die cut edges, because it's got little dashes that it cuts in the edges. So I'm going to take this over to my die cutting machine, and we're going to run it through the die cutting machine. And that's it for kind of the fiddly die cutting with this. And then the final layer, we're just going to adhere together. We're going to put the two die cut pieces together. And like I said, the edges, it's not vitally important that they line up, but I wanted it to line up as closely as I could. And actually, I'm not a terrible die cut with it. So I think these are going to work nicely together. And if I didn't say, hey, Karen, thanks for hopping in, and Amanda as well. I don't know if I said hi to everybody, but thanks for joining from Montana. Hopefully you've got this set on your list of things to buy, because in being from Montana, I would bet that you're going to have a lot of uses for this one. And then I started to put the Stampin' Seal on the back of this, and realized I should probably put it on the back of this die cut again, so I didn't have the glue issue like I'm just going to have right there. So I'm going to roll that down a little bit, make sure that doesn't peek out in a spot where I don't want it to be. And then again, just kind of roughly lining up the edges here with the die cut edges. And it's, again, not vitally important that you do that. Oh, it's a good one. You're going to love it. So, all right. Not vitally important that you get the little edge dashes to line up perfectly, but like I said, I was aiming for it, so I tried to do it. All right, then we're going to add a little Stampin' Seal to this die cut as well. And we're just going to peek that out back behind the other set of mountains here. So we're going to do about like that. And then we're going to take this and we're going to adhere the entire layered piece to the die cut Designer Series paper to give it like the sky look. So, all right. Hey, Barbara and Daryl, no problem. Glad you were able to hop in today. So, are you back at work, Daryl, or are you still with the new grandbaby? If you are, hopefully you're still enjoying your time. So, I know we went to Iowa last week and kind of just got in on the worst of the weather. It had been 80 degrees the day before we showed up, and then it was freezing cold and snowing and raining and slushing and disgusting out kind of the entire time that we were there. And then, yeah, then we came home. And then it was cold in New Jersey, and I'm like, golly, did we time that terribly or what? But apparently we did. All right, so then I'm just adhering that right over the top of the Designer Series paper, just lined it up here at the bottom. At least I kind of lined it up. Let me scooch it down there just a little bit. So lined it up at the bottom, lined it up along the edges, and now we've got our nice little mountain scene all set and ready to go on the front of the card. Back at work today, that's a bummer, but you know, I guess at some point we have to go back, don't we? So, all right, gonna take this and gonna put some Stampin' Seal on the back of here. I had actually thought about using Stampin' Dimensionals, but I did not for two reasons. The first one was Designer Series paper is a little thinner, so this part's a little thinner here up at the top, and it doesn't always hold up as well as regular cardstock does. And then I knew I was going to be layering the sentiment on with some Stampin' Dimensionals, so I was trying to kind of minimize the bulk of the card. So if I put this down flat, then I can stick the sentiment up a little bit higher and still probably mail it with just one stamp. So sunny spring in the Netherlands. Oh, lucky you, because it's not been so warm here. Finally, the sun came out, but it was raining and like 38 degrees here this morning when my daughter got on the bus. And I'm like, golly, the weather's just yuck. So, all right, next thing I did was tied a little bow with linen thread. And going to make it so it's got kind of big loops on it. I just want to make sure that it's big enough that it's going to go around my sentiment. So I'm going to go back over here, look at how large my sentiment was. And yep, that's going to fit. So I will go ahead and trim it off. There we go. And then I'm going to grab a glue dot and we'll stick the bow to the card front with a little glue dot. And it's going to look kind of ugly for a second, but that's okay because we'll be hiding it with the sentiment. Nobody's going to know it will look ugly, but you and me, because we were here. All right, so I'm going to take that and kind of roughly stick it about there because I know the sentiment is going to cover it sort of no matter where it goes on here. And then I just want to make sure that I get it, again, sort of roughly centered and then not hanging way off one side or the other. All right, last thing here is I've got a little piece of basic white cardstock and we are going to stamp the sentiment. So I've got, there it is, garden green ink for the smaller sentiment. And it says, let the begin. And I love that this is a two-part sentiment so that you can, first of all, do a mix and match on the sentiment. And secondly, you can stamp it easily in two different colors. Because if you're like me, sometimes the two-tone sentiments are a little more challenging for me, so I don't love using the markers on them because sometimes they don't stamp very nicely, but usually I can get a good solid image when I stamp this way. And then I've got the word journey to fit here in between the two. And that's Misty Moonlight ink that I'm using there. And I love that this stamps so easily. I love that it's perfectly spaced. And again, the word adventure would also fit in there, so if you prefer that over the word journey, you can mix and match your sentiments. And then I'm going to grab my second from the smallest of the Everyday Arches dies, and we're going to run this through the die cutting machine really quickly. So there we go. And I told you this card's going to come together pretty quickly. I love that the layers, you can die cut them so easily. Again, for me, the hardest part was kind of picking out which colors I was going to use on it. And once I did that, then it's just a matter of die cutting and getting everything, put together on the card front. But it's pretty quick and easy to use this set. So definitely a good one. And I think everybody should get it because you'll love it. So at least that's my opinion. All right, so I'm going to take my little half-stamped dimensionals and peel the backings off them. And I did stick a couple of the dimensionals right around the twine or the linen thread on my card front because I wanted to make sure that I didn't accidentally stick a dimensional right over the top of that bow and then have a weird lump in the sentiment. So I'm going to take this and we'll just sort of line it up here along the edge. Again, just making sure that I'm keeping the sentiment on the card front. That's the more important thing. And then smashing it down here now that I've got everything in the right spot. Last thing on the card front is I did grab a couple of the Riverside irregular pearls, and they're in 3 different colors. I can't even remember what the colors are. This one is either gray granite or smoky slate. And I knew it was a gray color and that it was close enough. So I just grabbed a couple of these. These pearls are actually 2 different sizes. So there's a larger one that I've stuck down here first, and then a little bit smaller one that I'll use as the second one. And we're just going to do 2 on here. So if you're a person who likes to do 3, you are welcome to do 3 if you want to. You can put your third one wherever you want it. I maybe would tuck it down here, but I like the way 2 looks, so that's what I went with. So where in Iowa? You're southwest Iowa. My parents live in the way northwest corner of Iowa, about 45 minutes from Sioux City, if that helps. Kind of up between Sioux City, Worthington, and Sioux Falls. So that was where I grew up at. So, all right. There we go. So I've got, for the inside of the card, kept it pretty simple. I've got basic white cardstock, and this is cut to about 4 by 5 1/4. And I've got some garden green ink and a couple of the tree images from the Scenic Adventure stamp set. We're just going to ink those up. And we'll stamp that tall, skinny one here over along the edge. And then the tall one that's a little bit fatter, ink it up also in garden green ink, and we'll stamp it sort of right next to it there. And then I'm just going to stamp the water image in Misty Moonlight ink. So, and again, I think it looks a little flatter on one side and a little rougher on the bottom. So I think the flat side's supposed to look like the top edge of the lake, if that makes sense. So that is how I've used it. If you think it looks better the other way around, you can certainly use it the other way around. I just like the way it looked like that. And yes, I know pine trees don't normally grow out of the water, but I like the way it looked, so I just left it alone. So, and the Misty Moonlight matched the inside of my card base. I could have changed it to gray granite or crumb cake or something like that, but Misty Moonlight matched, so I went with pine trees growing out of the water. And I'm sure that happened just maybe somewhere in the world, just not very often. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and put this on the inside of the card. Again, just using a little Stampin' Seal to put them together. And then going to fold it and use my bone folder to do the quick crease down the edge, and that is it. So, like I said, this is a really quick and easy card to put together. The die cutting, I actually did all of it here on screen. Well, technically it wasn't on screen, but with you while we were making the card, so you know that I'm not lying. This comes together really quickly, and it's super easy to use the set of dies. So there you go. So that is it. Cute little cards. And again, if you want to switch out the sentiments and make these birthday cards or something like that, I think this would be perfect. You could even do it as graduation cards, all sorts of good reasons to have this one. So definitely need to add this bundle to your list. Again, this will be available to order starting on the 6th of May. And if you're a demonstrator, you can actually add it to your shopping cart right now. So if you're not currently a demo, now's a great time to join and get the discount on all the products. So you sign up, $99 for your starter kit plus tax. It ships for free, and you get to pick $125 worth of merchandise, and you can add pre-order items to your cart. So it's awesome. Let me know if you have questions about that. We'd love to have you come join us. And then again, like I said, and if not, you'll be able to pick it up as a customer starting on the 6th of May. Details for this card will be posted on my blog tomorrow, which is stampwithamyk.com. And then once the post goes live around 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, I'll link directly to it in the description of this video, so you'll be able to find the blog post and be able to find all the details, cardstock cuts, printable PDF, all that good stuff will be posted out there tomorrow. So thanks everybody for joining. I will plan to be around, go live again around 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday, and then again around 2 o'clock Eastern time next week, Tuesday. So till then, have a great week, and we will chat with you all soon.